Today, more women are their family's main breadwinners than ever before. But on average, women are still earning just 77 cents on every dollar that a man does. Women with college degrees may earn hundreds of thousands of dollars less over the course of her career than a man at the same educational level.
The wage gap is not just something that affects women, it affects overall family security. Working moms are actually 40% of the major breadwinners in their homes in America today. And so what that wage gap means, and it's big for all women, but it's even worse for women of color, it means months of rent or mortgage that can't be paid, it means groceries, it means gas in your car. It's very, very tough. And we see that wage gap across the board. In all industries, across all educational levels, women are still lagging behind.
There's no job in this country where women are paid more than men.
Studies have suggested that women are more reluctant to say, hey, you offered me this starting salary, but I think I'm worth 10% more, where men are more likely to speak up for themselves.
Women are now making $1,337 less than they were making in 2007.
Men are now making $783 less than last year than they did 42 years ago. During World War II, the men went overseas and women were forced to serve as providers and caregivers for their families.
After the men returned from war, workplaces replaced the female workers with men. Women who kept their jobs were paid significantly lower wages. In 1963, President John F. Kennedy signed the Equal Pay Act. The Equal Pay Act made it illegal to pay men and women doing the same work different salaries. Although the Equal Pay Act was passed, women still faced problems in the workforce. Employers found ways to elude the law by changing the titles of jobs. Women were often demoted and their wages decreased, yet again.
Today, women still face workplace discrimination.
In 2006, the Ledbetter v. Goodyear Tire and Rubber Company court case was introduced to the Supreme Court. The plaintiff, Lily Ledbetter, was a female supervisor that worked at a Goodyear plant in Alabama for nearly 2 decades. While working there, Ledbetter experienced sexual harassment and was told by her boss that he did not believe that women should work there. She received an anonymous note disclosing that she was not receiving the same amount of money as her male coworkers and managers. Lily went to trial and received compensation for the discrimination that she faced. In 2009, the Lily Ledbetter Fair Pay Act was passed. The act protects workers against unlawful pay discrimination under the federal anti-discrimination laws.
After the act was passed, former Republican Congressman Pete Hoekstra was asked if he would support or repeal the Lily Ledbetter Fair Pay Act if he was ever elected into office. In response, he called the act a nuisance that shouldn't be passed. We spoke with Kate Wilkinson, an associate professor of women's and gender studies at Towson University in Maryland, and asked her a few questions regarding the gender wage gap.
I think that what happens mostly is that there's always a gap between men and women, but that if you add race and gender, you get a really huge gap, for instance, between white men and Latino women. That would probably be the biggest gap. I think the most important thing they can do is vote for politicians who are willing to enact legislation. I think that being a citizen who votes is by far the most important thing. Being both of Latin American ethnicity and a woman puts you in sort of the absolute worst position in the United States. Whereas being male and being Caucasian puts you in the absolute best position.
Well, it really starts with the people who give, like, who kind of give their wages. I mean, you can say, well, give it like better education or better job, but it won't improve the wages that someone gives. So I think legislation to make the wage, like, you know, equal.
Americans all across the country want change. The right time is now. So, future president, what will you do to fill this gap during your presidency?